Thanks to the transfer portal, head coach Darren DeVries and Indiana basketball have the best guards in the country.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Well, thank you so much for being here. Happy that you're here and glad that you're here. We're talking some football later on in the episode about Indiana picking up another transfer on the defensive side of the football, possible linebacker, possible defensive end, but he comes from right here in the Big Ten. So we'll talk about him, plus the commitment of Jason Drake and what he brings to Indiana basketball and what is now a loaded guard room for Indiana basketball. One that I think, ladies and gentlemen, is the best in the entire country. I think Indiana has completely reloaded. You had to because you had no players on this roster. And head coach Darren DeVries and his staff have come in. They said, we're going to have a bunch of guards. We're going to completely flip this thing around in a program where, let's be real, guard play has been down. Guard play has been pitiful the last handful of years. And so they came in and they decided to change that. And they did it in so many different ways. Whether you get somebody like Lamar Wilkerson, who is your go-to guy. You get a Connor Enright, who could be a starting point guard or could be a backup point guard that you really trust. Or a Jason Drake, who is just kind of there and you see what happens with him. That's what you have done with this entire portal class. On top of Reed Bailey, who's a big four, on top of Tucker DeVries, who can play as a massive two, a perfect three, or a small four. You've done a really good job in the transfer portal so far. I understand that we want big guys and we need some centers and we don't have any yet. And I understand there's concern there, but I've been talking about them and I'm telling you, then Indiana's going to go get some dudes. The portal is now closed. Keep that in mind. The portal is now closed. You had to have your paperwork filed by yesterday on April 22nd. If you're watching this on the day it comes out, April 22nd was when that was ended. That was done. There are still, I'm sure, some paperwork flying around out there. I think by the 24th, it officially has to be in and completed. But the 22nd was when you had to have it started. And so you can go ahead and safely assume that whoever's not in the portal now will not be in the portal. And whoever's in there, that's what you got. That's what you have to pick from. So that's what Indiana's going to do in terms of the big guys. But this guard room is absolutely insane. And I truly believe it's the best in the country. And you had nothing to work with, and you've completely rebuilt it. And not only did you rebuild it with starting caliber players, you did something really interesting, and I really am fascinated by what Darren DeVries did here. Because it could be really easy to step in your first year with nobody on the team and a lot of money at your disposal, and you have a lot of pressure on you to build a competitive roster. It would be really easy to come in and say, man, okay, let's just go for the most experienced guys who can help us win right away. Let's just go get a bunch of seniors with 1 year of eligibility remaining. Well, they got some of those, right? You got a Tatum Connerway from Texas Tech. You got a Lamar Wilkerson from Sam Houston. Both of those guys have 1 year of eligibility remaining. And look, they're probably going to be two of your best players this year. Will Lamar Wilkerson and Will Tatum Connerway. I'm really excited about them. Connerway, the 6'3" guard from Troy, who just was an everything type of guy, a do-it-all type of player. He can score, he can shoot, he can rebound, he can pass, he can dribble, he can do it all. He can run in the fast break, he can defend, can Tatum Connerway. And then Lamar Wilkerson, who was probably the best guard in the entire portal. So he shoots it at over 40%, 44% to be exact. He scored over 20 points a game, a top 15 scorer in all of college basketball. So those two guys are going to be awesome for the year that they're here in Bloomington. But the thing that stands out to me is the fact that you have now picked up three other guys who are going to be here, not necessarily long term, but they're going to be here for more than a year, you would hope. They at least have the option to be here for more than a year. You start all the way at the top with Connor Enright from DePaul, who is a junior coming in, a redshirt junior. I believe he'll have more than just the 1 year of eligibility if he wants it, okay? He's somebody you can rely on. He's somebody you can trust. He's played for DeVries before. You have a trust factor there with a Connor Enright. You then start looking through, right? And you say, okay, well, what else do you have? Well, remember Josiah Miles from North Florida, the sophomore from North Florida? Yeah, somebody that, how much will he touch the floor this year? I don't know. Maybe a lot, maybe not. But somebody that is what I've described as a developmental piece who is just raw as can be, has a ton of freaking talent. He's just needs a little bit of experience and he needs to be around a Power 5 program like in Indiana. He comes in, he could be your starting guard as a junior or a senior. He could absolutely be that. As a 15 points per game, 7 rebounds per game dude. Remember, this is the 6'6" kid, the guy who's a guard at 6'6", 210. Josiah Miles is no joke, but you get him not necessarily for 25, 26, but for 26, 27, and 27, 28 and beyond. You went and got your future at the guard position. I also believe that you did that with Jason Drake, who we are going to talk about here in just a moment, who has 2 years of eligibility remaining. You bring him in as well. I think he's somebody who can be a trusted ball handler this year, 15, 18 minutes per game, and then you look to him for the future. And so you see what I'm saying here, right? This is why the guard room is the best in the country, because you have a perfect mix. You have a mix of guys who are going to be just downright ballers in Lamar, Wilkerson, and Tate Connerway, who just have the 1 year, but you've also recruited for your future on top of Trent Sisley, who's your high school recruit, your top 75 player, who you've kept committed to the class. You've built for the future as well, on top of whatever you can recruit in the transfer portal this time next year, right? That's what's exciting to me, is the fact that this guard room is loaded top to bottom. Any of these guys, if you needed them to, if you had to, if you were in a jam, any of them could start at the 1 or the 2, I believe. But you're not there anymore. You have options. And if one of these guys doesn't work out, and go ahead and prepare yourself, one of these guys is probably not going to be as good as we thought he was. It's okay. You've gotten so many other ones around him. It simply doesn't matter. And that's why Darren DeVries needs to be celebrated here. That's why this is exciting. And that is why this is the best guard room in all of college basketball. It's going to be a lot of fun. They can all score. They can all shoot. They can all defend. And they're all just exciting players to watch. I'm telling you, don't get hung up on last year. Don't get hung up on Miles Rice and Cannon Carlisle. This is not that. I'm telling you, it's not. This is a completely different situation with a completely new set of players and a completely brand new coach. This is going to be different. And this is the best guard room in all of college basketball. And Indiana has that at their disposal walking in to the 25-26 season. All right, coming up here on Locked On Hoosiers, we'll talk a little bit more about Jason Drake, what he brings to this Indiana roster, why he was important, and also the fact that Indiana might just be one of the highest spending teams in college basketball. We got that coming up for you next here on the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment? It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Look, when I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery and going out and just eating non-good food and expensive food. But now I'm able to budget a little bit smarter and save so much more money. And if you've got a partner out there that you're trying to manage money with, you can do that smoother than ever right now with Monarch Money. You can have personal accounts, you can join accounts, have goals, all that good stuff with Monarch money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Again, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you spending your day with us, spending a little bit of time hearing and watching a little bit of Indiana athletics news. More football things coming up at the end of the show, but we're going to get into the latest commitment for Indiana basketball in Jason Drake from Drexel, right? The Drexel Dragons. More on him in just a few moments, but just want to say thank you for being here. And if you would help us out just a little bit on audio, make sure you're following us over there, have your notifications turned on, send it out to your family and friends on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, Pandora. It doesn't matter how you do it. We really appreciate you doing so. And if you are watching on the YouTube side, hit that thumbs up. That tells me you like the content, tells YouTube you like the content as well. The robot does its thing. Also, comment down below your thoughts on Indiana's guard room right now and suggestions on where we should go to get a big guy. We've talked about a lot of them, but we got to get some for Indiana. So leave those thoughts in the YouTube comments and then subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All of those things help us out tremendously. All right, so Jason Drake is the newest addition to the Indiana basketball squad. We talked about him on this show yesterday, about how he was visiting on Monday. He was supposed to go to St. John's on Thursday. Rick Pitino and St. John's were trying to get him to visit, trying to get him to come check it out, see what they had going on up there in the Big East. But after he visited Indiana, he said, nah, I'm good. No thanks, Rick. I'm home and I'm going to Indiana. So shout out to this staff once again, man. They have just crushed it with kids who step on this campus and have not let them leave. And that's such a big deal for Indiana because that hasn't been the case the last couple of years, right? Sure, we've had kids come in and visit and they've liked it and everything like that, but there was this glaring factor that they didn't like. And it's crazy that all of a sudden, when you remove that factor, kids want to come back to Indiana. What a wild concept that is. And we used to be in these recruiting battles. We used to be in these transfer portal. What's the best word to use right there? Transfer portal bidding war. I mean, let's just be honest. That's kind of what it is. And this auction in the transfer portal, if you will, it's just crazy. But the Hoosiers used to be in all of these. We just never won all of these. And now we are. And somebody like Jason Drake, I was just talking a few moments ago, how he steps in as a solid guard. He's not Lamar Wilkerson. He's not. He's not Lamar Wilkerson. He's not going to drop 20 points a game at any level he plays. He's not going to shoot it at 44% on 8 attempts per game. He does have a good 3-point percentage. We'll talk about that. But he's just somebody you bring in as a solid backup guard who could be a starter down the road if you need him to be. But I like what he brings in Jason Drake. He joins that loaded room that we just talked about. He's from Michigan, right there around Detroit. So he's hard-nosed. He knows what's going on. Last year at Drexel in 2024 and 2025, he averaged 11 points, 3 assists, 3 rebounds a game. All right, 11 points, 3 assists, 3 rebounds a game, nearly a steal per game. So he's got the defensive mindset as well. That was in starting almost every game for them. It may have been every game at 33. He shot it at 45% from the floor. Not too bad as a guard. And almost 40% from downtown. 40% from 3. I know that sounds good to you. I know it does. It sounds really good. And he also shoots it at 86.5% from the free throw line. That's what I like. That's what stands out to me because that tells me you can put him in late game if you need to. You can put him in if one of your other guards like a Lamar Wilkerson or a Tatum Connerway has foul trouble. You can put Jason Drake in there and you trust him because he's got the ball handling skills. I've watched a lot of his film, and that seems to be a pretty good scouting report on him, is the fact that he doesn't turn it over a lot, and you can trust him to bring it up the floor in heavy press and things like that, and he knocks down his free throws, and I think that's exciting for Jason Drake. Want to go back to that 3-point percentage for just a second because, yes, he does shoot it at a high percentage. He just doesn't shoot it at a high rate, okay? He doesn't shoot a lot of them, but when he does, he typically makes them. And you know what? that's fine. Last year at Drexel, it was more of, hey, let's set this up for Jason Drake on a catch and shoot three on the wing, or a catch and shoot three on the corner, or a walk in three at the top of the key. That's kind of what they did with him. It wasn't necessarily let him dribble around, get a high ball screen, and then let it rip from 28 feet. Not really what Jason Drake does. If he's open and you get it to him, he'll shoot it and he'll knock it down. But if he's not open, he won't shoot it from out there. And you know what? That's fine. In today's college basketball, that is a rarity where it's like, oh, I have the ball. I must shoot the three. I have to shoot this three. I don't care if you're just smother covered in country. I have to shoot this thing. Not him. He shoots smart shots. And somebody who will step in and look, you get 8 and 3 from him, 8 points, 3 assists, couple of boards in there. He passes the ball really, really well. I think you're going to be fine. That's all you need from him. 8-3, a couple of boards. Don't turn the ball over. Hit a couple of threes when you're in there, and we're good to go. Knock down your free throws if you get fouled, and everything's going to be fine. I like Jason Drake, and so did St. John's, and that's why Indiana lands him is a big, big deal. And he joins that guard room that is the best in college basketball. And I know a lot of you have seen this, and we'll probably talk about this later in the week more in depth with football and with basketball. But I know there's a lot of conversation with the stories that were coming out about the highest spending programs and the fact that, yeah, Indiana's in some of the top. I mean, north of $10 million, flirting with even more than that in terms of what they're going to spend on their roster next year. My response to that is good. Good. Who cares? It's pay to win right now in college athletics, college football, college basketball. Ohio State paid to win. That's why they won a national title on the football field. Nobody's complaining about that. Nobody's dogging on them for that because they spent more money and got better players, which led to them winning the most games and winning the most important games and winning a national championship. Who cares? Indiana's up there. We're not the most expensive, but we're going to have one of the most expensive. And with that, with great power comes great responsibility, right? Well, you have all this money and you're spending this on this roster this year and beyond. You better win games. You better win. That's how this works at Indiana, which is why Mike Woodson no longer has a job. But Dark Knight DeVries, he's going to get it done, all right? He's going to be fine. And you get another guy, Jason Drake. Your guard room was loaded. You're still looking for a center, and I'm hoping the Dark Knight DeVries strikes again at some point, and he will. You're going to get some bigs, and you've got the money to do it, but I love what Drake brings. Again, he has to, he's got to elevate a little bit in terms of his game moving to the Big Ten, but he's going to be just fine. He brings 2 years of eligibility remaining because he had a JUCO season, thanks to all that ruling and stuff. So he has the extra year because of the JUCO stuff. He steps in for 2 years. He won't be a starter this year. He'll come off the bench and be a role guy. But if he develops the way he's supposed to, and you can get what you're looking for out of him, he's a starter in the future, possibly next year, is Jason Drake from Drexel. Love this kid. Think he's a really good addition, really good backup guard for the Hoosiers and head coach Darren DeVries. All right, coming up here in the final segment on Locked On Hoosiers, flipping back over to the football side where the Hoosiers pick up their second portal commit on the defensive side of the football. Played linebacker at Maryland, but he could be on the defensive line, maybe the hand in the dirt here in Bloomington. We'll talk about him coming up next in our final segment on Locked On Hoosiers. Final segment on Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you again so much for being here. Shout out to my everydayers. You are the reason that this show is so successful, so thank you for that. And we move over to the football side of things where the transfer portal is still going, just going a little bit slower for the football team. And if you listen to this show every day, you know that I warned you of that, and that's okay. We already talked about Stephen Daley, the Kent State defensive end, who I think is a really, really good player. Had 9 tackles for loss, 51 total tackles as a junior last year, brings in 1 year of eligibility on that defensive line. I think Stephen Daley steps in and competes for a starting job. I really, really do. I think he's that talented from Kent State. I think he's good enough, and I think you go get somebody like him well, let me say it this way. You don't go get somebody like him if you don't expect him to start or play significant snaps on the defensive line. That's what you get in Stephen Daley from Kent State. But the new guy that you just picked up from the transfer portal is from the Big Ten, and his name is Kellen Wyatt, and he is from the Big Ten. He's from Maryland, where he played linebacker last year. Okay, 6'2", 252 pounds, and played linebacker, which is just massive as a linebacker. That's the size of a linebacker. 6'2" is fine, gets the job done, and gets after the football. He is a see ball, get ball type of guy. Word on the street is, and according to some reports, Indiana wants to use him as a defensive end. They want to use him as a D-line guy to come off. I'm not sure. I guess coming off the edge. I don't know if they'll move him on the inside. I doubt it. But they want to use him on the defensive line. And he steps in, had 7.5 tackles for loss last year, had 30 total tackles, 3 sacks in 2024 when he was a linebacker at Maryland. And you bring him in and kind of can use him wherever you want to. And again, Indiana wanted to use him on the defensive line. Fine, good enough for me. But if you do need him as a linebacker, which I still think you need a linebacker, you can do so. And so you kind of bring in a flex type of guy, I would say, where if you need him at linebacker, cool, he's got experience. If you need to put him at defensive end, okay, he's massive and he can fly around to the football. He'll be just fine there too. And so I'm really liking what you have brought in to this program so far in the spring portal window. That's only 2, though. You've only brought in 2 guys, but they're on the defensive side of the football, where we said if there was a spot to get more depth, those, I guess that was the side that you wanted to. I said you needed a starting linebacker and a starting slot receiver. You could use depth on both offensive and defensive lines. You can never have enough of those guys, which is why this is important. You bring in somebody from Kent State who's going to flirt to be a starter, and you also bring in Kellen Wyatt, who will flirt to be a starter. Both guys have 1 year of eligibility, and so they come in and they're just going to give it all they got, and you're going to play them where you want to. And I think we've learned one thing about Curt Cignetti and this staff. They're not going to pamper you. They're not going to give in to you. They're not going to do something just to make you feel good and to protect your feelings. No, they're not going to do that. They're going to play you where they need you, and you're going to like it. And if you don't, you can get out and go play somewhere else. And these guys understood that. I think that message is very clear when you come and talk to Indiana and this staff. And these guys are fine with it. They want to come in and compete. They want to come in and contribute. They want to come in and win. And that's what you're going to get with this Indiana football team. And I like these additions. I'm starting to feel more comfortable with what the defensive side of the football holds, because we know what is the returning talent. And we know that there's some really good freshmen over there. You just had to fill some of these holes. And I think you could still do so. I think you could on the offensive side. Again, that slot receiver and more offensive linemen. Yes, you brought in Pat Coogan. You brought in 2 other Power 5 guys. You can just never have enough. And I'm not saying we necessarily need a starter up front on the offensive line, but you can never have enough of those guys. And other than that, Indiana's not going to do a whole lot. And so really, really like Kellen Wyatt. Interesting that they want to use him up front rather than in that second level at the linebacker spot. And look, that could change. Maybe they get him in here and, see what he looks like over the summer. They're not going to practice or anything, but then you get into the fall and you just kind of put him where you need him. If he needs to be a starting linebacker next to Aiden Fisher, all right, cool. He has to change nothing. And you have 2 really good dudes in that second level, or you let him put his hand in the dirt and you see what he can do. And you just let him rip and you still go get a linebacker somewhere else. And so really excited about what Indiana football has done. Still more additions to come. Portal window open for a couple of more days. I believe the 25th or 26th. I have to double check on that to see which day. All these dates are just kind of crazy. So a couple of more days for people to enter their name. Same way on the basketball side, right? Enter your name. Doesn't mean once the portal closes that we can't get anymore. You just can't have anybody else enter. And we haven't lost anybody that's lost a couple that kind of hurt, sure, but nobody that you can't replace. And I think that's exactly what you've done with Stephen Daley from Kent State and now Kellen Wyatt from Maryland. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers, man. Thank you so much again for being here, having so much fun. I really appreciate you being here, whether you listen every day, whether you watch every day, however you take in this show and interact with us. We really, really do appreciate it, okay? Make sure you're following us on your audio platforms, have those notifications turned on, and make sure you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, okay? On this video, on the channel, comment down below as well. All of that helps us grow here at Locked On Hoosiers, okay? We are back tomorrow, Hoosier fans. So until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.